Kia ora and welcome back to the HRPI. I'm Marie Tovio, Employment Relations Consultant, Private Investigator, and your guide to navigating New Zealand's trickier workplace situations. Today's case file is the Exit Interview Enquiry: how employers can use employee departures to support other initiatives such as strengthening retention, improving culture, and identifying issues before they become bigger problems. When someone resigns, many organisations simply process the paperwork, arrange the final pay, and start a recruitment process to fill the vacancy. But for an HR investigator, every departure leaves behind a trail of clues about what's really happening inside a workplace. Handled well, exit interviews can help employers identify patterns in leadership, workload, culture, and employee experience, and give organisations an opportunity to improve. They're not only about identifying problems, they can also highlight what employees valued about the organisation and what should be protected or strengthened. Handled poorly, however, they can become defensive conversations that add little value. It's also worth noting that exit interviews aren't a perfect source of information even when done well. Like any investigation, they provide one piece of the puzzle, not the full picture. That's why they're most useful when considered alongside other data such as engagement, feedback, and ongoing conversations with staff. So, if you're conducting exit interviews, how do you ensure that you're doing them well? The first step is timing and approach. Exit interviews are usually conducted toward the end of the employee's notice period as part of the organisation's standard exiting process. By that stage, the employee has typically had time to reflect on their experience and may be more comfortable sharing constructive feedback about what worked well and what could be improved. In many organisations, exit interviews are conducted by HR or another neutral manager rather than the employee's direct supervisor, which can help encourage more open and honest feedback. While the conversation is a normal part of a departure process, employees should still feel free to decline answering any questions they're not comfortable discussing. The second step is psychological safety. Employees are far more likely to speak candidly if they understand that the purpose of the discussion is learning, not defending past decisions. It's often helpful to explain that individual comments will generally be summarised alongside other feedback to identify broader themes rather than being shared directly with managers. This helps protect the employee while allowing the organisation to learn from the information provided. However, it's also important to be clear that if something serious is raised, such as a serious health and safety risk, the organisation may seek the employee's consent to share that specific feedback with identified others so that the matter can be looked into further. Because exit interviews involve collecting personal information about workplace experiences, employers should ensure that information is handled in line with the Privacy Act 2020, including storing it securely and limiting access to those who genuinely need it. Explaining this to the employee at the outset can also provide reassurance about how their feedback will be handled. The third step is asking questions that actually matter. Rather than focusing only on administrative matters, good exit interviews explore the employee's overall experience of the workplace. For example, you might ask, what influenced your decision to leave? Was there anything that might have encouraged you to stay? How would you describe your experience of leadership, communication, and workload? Did you feel supported in your development? And would you recommend the organisation as a place to work? These types of open questions often reveal insights that don't appear in engagement surveys or performance reviews. The fourth step is looking for patterns, not reacting to individual comments. A single piece of feedback is just one person's perspective, but when similar themes appear across multiple exit interviews, that can indicate a systemic issue. Common themes organisations identify include onboarding gaps, unclear expectations, workload pressure, limited development opportunities, or inconsistencies in leadership capability. When employers analyse exit feedback over time, alongside other data, it can become a useful tool for strengthening workplace systems and improving retention. The fifth step is acting on the information. Collecting feedback is only useful if something changes as a result. Where themes emerge, organisations should consider what improvements can reasonably be made and communicate those actions to the wider team. When employees see that feedback leads to genuine improvements, it strengthens trust and engagement across the organisation. There is also a risk management aspect to exit interviews that employers should keep in mind. Sometimes employees raise issues during these conversations that have not previously been reported, such as concerns about workplace behaviour, underpayments, or unresolved employment issues. If that happens, those matters should be taken seriously and addressed appropriately, consistent with the employer's obligations of good faith under the Employment Relations Act. It may be necessary to discuss with the employee how those matters could be addressed or resolved. You may want to investigate further or review past decisions to ensure the organisation has met its obligations under employment law. It is usually appropriate to discuss with the employee what information may need to be shared if further follow-up is required. Ignoring concerns raised during exit interviews may otherwise allow issues to escalate into formal complaints or personal grievances. At the same time, exit interviews are not intended to reopen every past decision or dispute. Their purpose is learning from feedback while ensuring any significant issues raised are considered appropriately. Here's a practical example. One organisation I worked with began conducting structured exit interviews after noticing a steady increase in staff turnover. The feedback revealed a common theme. New employees felt underprepared during their first few months because the recruitment and induction processes didn't provide sufficient information and were inconsistent. The organisation redesigned its recruitment and onboarding program, introduced clearer development milestones, and ensured new starters had regular check-ins during their first 3 months. Within 10 months, employee turnover had dropped significantly, and new staff reported feeling more confident in their roles. Exit interviews aren't about proving someone wrong or defending past decisions. They're about learning from experience and improving the workplace for the people who remain or join in the future. So the key lessons from today's case file are these. Treat departures as an opportunity to learn. Ask consistent, open questions. Look for patterns rather than individual comments. And most importantly, act on the information you receive. If you're reviewing your exit interview process or considering how feedback from departing staff might be used more effectively, it can be helpful to step back and look at the bigger picture before making changes. Feel free to reach out to me to discuss what you might look at. The information in this podcast is provided as a general overview of key employment topics and does not replace tailored advice. Every situation is different and the appropriate steps can vary depending on the specific circumstances. If you're unsure about how to proceed in your workplace, I encourage you to seek advice and support. Feel free to get in touch with me directly. Another case file reviewed, the evidence examined, and a few more clues uncovered about what really keeps good people in your workplace. Mā te wā.